Welcome to the August 31st, 2016 school committee meeting. We're happy to have you join us. East Hampton, this meeting is being recorded by East Hampton Media, and East Hampton Media, channels 191, 192, and 193 is currently looking for volunteers. If anyone is interested in helping to help tape city government meetings, please contact Kathy Lynch at 413-203-1360. And we'd like to thank Tim Riley for taping tonight's production for us. Superintendent Follinsby, do you have some announcements for us?
Yes, I do. The first day of school for students is tomorrow, Thursday, September 1st. Kindergarten screenings will take place on Thursday and Friday, September 1st and 2nd. There's no school on Monday, September 5th, due to Labor Day. Kindergarten visiting day is Tuesday, September 6th. Kindergarten students' first day is Wednesday, September 7th. And there is no school on Thursday, September 8th, due to state primary election and teacher professional development day.
Very good. Did you want to, never mind, I'll wait till your report. I didn't know if you wanted to comment on the day today at all.
Yes, certainly. So,
We had the whole thing because there was a couple of pages that
video.
were not.
This is a summer school committee meeting, so I guess it's not going quite as smoothly as our regular school committee meetings. Yes, Deb Lusnia, I would like to comment on today. We had the second day of our teacher professional development days. And yesterday was the first day where teachers met in their buildings and had professional development. New teachers got to meet the veteran teachers and got to know each other and their buildings and their administrators. And today we had a session with everyone in the district. Deb Lusnia was there to say a few words to our staff, as was the mayor. That was wonderful. And so the whole morning was a full district meeting at the high school in the auditorium, and in the afternoon the teachers went back to their schools for the remainder of the day. I think the energy was great this morning. Everybody seems enthusiastic about starting the new year. We have a good number of new teachers and staff members this year, and so we're very excited to have them join our community here in East Hampton, and we're looking forward to having a great year this year. And I don't know if you wanted to say anything else. You were there briefly.
Yeah, it was exciting. It was nice to see everybody all together and all the enthusiasm and energy for the coming year. And it was, I thoroughly enjoy the opportunity to be there, and it's very exciting.
Did you also want to mention the barbecue last night?
Oh yes, the freshman
was really
barbecue
great.
at the high school. That was wonderful as well. A tradition that the high school has every year. They invite the parents and their freshman students to come for a barbecue at the high school. And that was very well attended. The mayor and I were there, and Deb Lusnia, and lots of freshmen, some looking a little nervous, but it was really, really a great affair and lots of positive energy. Did you want to add any comments, Mayor?
No, I agree, though. The minute you walk in the door, you could feel the energy and the excitement, whether it's nervous excitement or excitement. It was well attended.
Very well attended.
And most of the staff are there, so it's great because you get to mix and mingle with all the teachers, and they want to get to know new kids. And I don't know if you just said this, but they give tours of the building. And yeah, it's awesome.
I just wanted to mention the East Hampton PTO put on the kindergarten play dates, and there were 3 of them the last 3 weeks, and yesterday the kindergarten teachers were there. They made an appearance, so it was really nice to meet all of the families coming in, and all the excitement with the kindergartners coming into the new school. So
I heard that was well attended.
well
too.
attended. There's a lot of really wonderful families in the
That's
community.
awesome.
Yeah.
Very excited to have our new families join us.
That's great. We appreciate the PTO doing that. It's wonderful.
Yes.
Yeah,
Huge.
Really successful.
That's great.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. We typically discuss any correspondence at this point in time, but we don't have any correspondence this week. Okay, and we don't have any gifts this week. So we'll be moving on to our public speak portion of our meeting. At this time, we invite anyone who might like to come speak to us that's not currently listed on the agenda. We invite you to do so and come to the podium and state your name and where you're from. If anyone would like to do that, this would be the time to do it. Okay, I guess no one would like to do that. So we will move on to a special presentation that we have from Alice Wanamaker, one of our Whitebrook Middle School students. And she is going to speak to us about I am assuming, about the Whitebrook Middle School dress code.
Yes.
Okay. We heard from Alice back in the spring or early summer about the dress code, and this is a follow-up presentation from her.
Hi. Thank you for allowing me to come back and speak to you again. With Ms. Belisa's help, I've created a proposal for a new dress code that will better suit the current needs at Whitebrook. Before I show you the specifics of the proposal, I want to show you the framework that I used to create the changes I made. These are a couple of viewpoints that I used. Equity, between genders and between higher and lower income families. Everyone who goes to Whitebrook should be able to find clothes that fit the dress code without a lot of difficulty. Student opinions. Students should be able to go to school wearing clothes that they like and that are fashionable. And safety. The clothes students wear shouldn't compromise their safety in the school setting. All of these are viable arguments and important things to keep in mind when creating a dress code. However, while I was researching for this presentation by reading some peer-reviewed journal articles, I found another argument that seemed more compelling than those I had previously described, which is the law. This is a Massachusetts law that reads, "School officials shall not abridge the rights of students to personal dress and appearance, except if such officials determine that such personal dress and appearance violate reasonable standards of health, safety, and cleanliness." I looked up the definitions of health, safety, and cleanliness. These definitions are from the Merriam-Webster Online Dictionary. Health, the condition of being sound in mind, body, or spirit. Safety, the condition of being safe from undergoing or causing hurt, injury, or loss. Cleanliness, cleanly, careful to keep clean. So any items of clothing that do not compromise the health, safety, or cleanliness of students cannot be banned. There's another law that I used to create my case, Title IX of the Federal Education Amendment Act of 1972, which states that no person in the United States shall, on the basis of sex, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any educational program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. You may think that this law is a bit harsh in the context of the dress code. It's not stopping students from participating in school. However, there is one word here that I want to focus on, which is discrimination. The definition of discrimination, also from the Merriam-Webster Online Dictionary, reads, "Discrimination, the practice of unfairly treating a person or group of people differently from other people or groups of people." So there is no intentional discrimination going on in our dress code, but I interpreted this law to mean if there is data that proves that it is more difficult for some students to follow a dress code rule than others, it could be argued that that rule is illegal. I don't think a ton of rules in our dress code are discriminatory, but I want to give you an example of one that I have evidence to support that it is, which is the rule about length of shorts. I looked at all juniors and boys' shorts available in 6 stores: Walmart, Forever 21, Target, Kohl's, Kmart, and Aeropostale. These are all popular stores to shop at, and they are at a variety of price points. The left section of the graph shows the percent of juniors or girls' shorts that met the dress code. The middle section shows the percentage of junior shorts that did not meet the dress code, and the right section shows the percent of boys' shorts that met the dress code. I was not able to find a single pair of boys' shorts that broke the dress code, while the average percent of junior shorts in a store that meet the dress code is under 8%. This data strongly supports that it is more difficult for girls to get shorts that meet the dress code, so this rule could be classified as discriminatory. I used those 2 laws as my main platform in creating my proposal. From my reading of these laws, I became concerned that the following rules that we have in our current dress code may be illegal. Shorts and skirts above the fingertips, sweatbands, spaghetti straps, tank tops with oversized armholes, and sheer fabric. No matter how any of us feel about these dress code rules, if our analysis finds that they violate the law, I don't believe they can be used in our school system. So in addition to these rules, which I recommend we remove because I believe them to be illegal, I'm also going to propose some rules that we abridge and some enforcement regulations to be set. And I'd like to ask that you refrain from questions and comments until you've seen the entirety of this proposal so you can think about it as a whole. So, besides of getting rid of those rules, I also want to abridge a couple. The first is the rule that bans hats. I propose that this rule be abridged to only ban hats with brims. The potential safety hazard, not being able to see faces on a camera, is not an issue for a student wearing a beanie. The only argument against beanies is that they could be gang symbolism. However, gang presence isn't currently an issue at Whitebrook, and I learned in my research that courts are unlikely to uphold anti-gang rules if there is not actual gang presence in a school. The second rule is the one that bans rubber thongs or flip-flops. There's evidence that flip-flops cause damage to the feet, so this rule is not illegal. I don't think it should be removed, just reworded so that it just says flip-flops are not allowed. Flip-flops is the current terminology for that item. I had never heard the term rubber thongs in my life before reading this. So the dress code should reflect what people are actually wearing and what it is called. The third is the rule banning clothing with holes or tears in inappropriate areas. I propose that we reword this so that it simply bans clothes that reveal underwear. Inappropriate areas is a vague and subjective term. Not showing your underwear can be categorized as a reasonable standard of cleanliness. However, this rule does not mean that girls can be penalized for their bra strap peeking around their shirt. Finally, the rule about exposed midriffs. I believe that this rule is legal. There is nothing unsafe, unhealthy, or unclean about a visible stomach. However, I am also aware that this rule has been the subject of heated debate here before, and that the high school also has a rule like this. So, for the time being, I simply want to rephrase this rule so that it bans tops that reveal stomachs. It's the same rule, but with more current language. So, this is my proposal for this year's dress code. The following items may not be worn in school: clothes that reveal underwear, flip-flops, hats with brims, tops that reveal stomachs, hoods, shoes or footwear with wheels, pajamas and/or flannel pajama bottoms, sunglasses, thick metal chains, jewelry or leather bands with metal, plastic, or rubber studs, spikes, or nails. But wait, there's more. Besides the rule changes, I also wanted to put in place some regulations for the enforcement of the dress code. Firstly, teachers must do their best to enforce the dress code every time they see it being broken. If rules are not enforced, they will not be followed. Also, in my last presentation, I shared some research I had done which suggested that enforcement of the current dress code is very inconsistent and disproportionately affects female students. This is an equity issue. A dress code cannot be non-discriminatory if only girls are consequenced for breaking it. Universal enforcement will make the dress code more fair. And I also predict that students will be more willing and more able to follow this dress code than the current one. Secondly, if a student is wearing an item of clothing that does not break the dress code, they cannot be penalized for wearing it. One of my main objectives when creating this proposal was that it was not subjective, that nobody could be treated differently because of their body type. In order for this to work, students can only be penalized for wearing items that break the dress code, not just items that a teacher thinks is inappropriate. I also wanted to make sure that consequences for breaking the dress code would not remove students from class. Obviously, there should be consequences for breaking rules, which I'm letting Ms. Belize come up with, but breaking the dress code should not interfere with students' abilities to learn. And finally, the dress code should be updated on a yearly basis by a team of teachers and students. Fashions change very quickly. Maybe something that was an issue in the past will stop needing a rule because nobody's wearing it anyway. Or maybe something will become an issue that wasn't in the past. Regardless, the dress code should be reviewed yearly by both teachers and students. And this year, I'm planning on working on creating a framework to use to review it. So this is the entirety of my proposal, but I wanted to address another topic that you may or may not have been thinking about, the exposed stomachs rule and the high school dress code. When I started looking at East Hampton dress codes last November, Whitebrook stuck out to me. It was the most conservative, and it affected me the most. But as I've learned about these laws within the last few months, I've discovered that the high school dress code is also problematic. I didn't have the time or the data to try to change the high school dress code after I found that out, which is why I'm leaving that rule in. But one of my enforcement regulations is that the dress code be updated yearly, so I am excited to continue my research this year with the high school dress code.
Thank you very much. Have you shared all this information? Have you shared all this with Ms. Belize?
Yes, Ms. Belize helped me create this proposal. She has written the new dress code the way I have it in the slide into the proposed new handbook, and she is aware of what I'm presenting tonight.
Very good.
Could you Could you also send the PowerPoint now that you've done the presentation of it so that the school committee could see it after the meeting as well?
Yeah, let me know where to send it to.
You could actually send it to me at my address. I think you've got that in your email.
Yeah.
But if not, send me an email and I'll give it to you.
Okay.
And then we can forward it to the school committee members.
Cool.
Thank you, Alice.
You don't have any other questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think it was fantastic presentation.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
Good job. Thank you, Alice. Okay, we'll be moving on to our subcommittee reports.
Just as a side note, and I should have said this while Alice was up, but I don't know if she'll recognize the name. Her parents may, but Mary Beth Tinker also adds her applause to your presentation. You may remember the name Mary Beth Tinker from the Supreme Court case in the 1960s involving student dress and student freedom of expression. And I had the occasion to meet her this summer and work with her, and I shared the essence of your proposal, and she applauded your initiative.
Yeah, can I ask a question? Sure. So, like, what's going to happen with this next? Like, is the new dress code going to be used this year? Is that something that's being decided?
Well, we're going to be reviewing and approving the handbook
okay.
this evening. So, yeah, so the handbook will be approved tonight. So if the dress code's in here as you have presented it, that will be under discussion and review for vote this evening. Okay, we're all set. Very good, thank you again. Okay, Finance Subcommittee. I don't believe we've met.
No.
Okay, and I'm sure we will be in coming month or so, but we have no report for tonight. And how about the Policy Review Subcommittee?
Same here, we haven't met since the last time we met.
You haven't met, okay, very good. And we don't have a collaborative update because our collaborative representative is not here with us tonight, Cynthia. So we'll move on to the superintendent's report.
And before we do, if I could just mention to the policy subcommittee that I did have a request from a parent to review our kindergarten entry deadline for date, birth date, and to review it. So I would just request that perhaps you put that on your next agenda.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so, student handbooks first.
Sorry, can I interrupt you for a second?
Sure.
Was there something in particular that they wanted us to look at, or was it just to like review that policy?
There was something in particular, but I think probably when we meet as a subcommittee,
We can talk about it then.
we can go over that. Okay, so this year we did our student handbooks a little bit differently. We, as a leadership team, met and decided that there were pieces in our handbooks, in all three handbooks, elementary, middle, and high school, that are the same, particularly the policy pieces of the handbook. And so the leadership team principals thought that it would be helpful to have those the same, the exact same in every single handbook. And that way, too, the policy section can be changed relatively easily from year to year. We had talked at one point about doing one handbook. There are some school districts that do one handbook with everything that's common, and then they add a couple of pages for the different schools. But that seemed a bit more than we were ready to do this year. So what you have are three handbooks. The beginning of each handbook is the common piece for the handbook, and then following that is the piece that's specific to the particular school. The parts that are different, and particularly in policy, that's what I would direct you to, are the first parts, the common parts, and they're highlighted in yellow. So we've also added new teacher members of schools and of our district central office as well. The first policy that the policy subcommittee approved, and it's a policy that was changed at the state level, is the alcohol, tobacco, and drug use by students prohibited policy. This policy is changed to also include e-cigarettes, vapor, and e-cigarettes, so they've expanded the policy to be more specific about what is not allowed on school property. The next one is the parent appeal process. This is a policy that did exist in our handbook, but in our policy book rather, but was not in our student handbook. And we did have some parents who had some confusions about the appeal process if they felt that there was an issue that they wanted to appeal. So we thought it was important to add this to the student handbook.
In the case of the parental appeal process, it seems as though it would be wise, or at least prudent, to have the inclusion that a parent could, in terms of following the steps of the proper channeling, if the concern is directly with someone in that chain, I could understand why a parent might be reluctant to address them, and that it wouldn't be that they could still be considered to be following the proper channel even if they skipped over one of the steps in what we describe as, quote, the proper channeling of complaint.
Well, I think that this is to try to, and quite honestly, this is the policy, the school committee policy. So I just took it as it was written in our policy handbook and put it into this document. So if the school committee would like to, that could be something that could be addressed at the policy subcommittee level too,
Right.
to revise this policy. But for now, we thought it was important to include what was currently the policy to help allay some of the confusion for the steps to take if there's a complaint. So that certainly could be revised in the future. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
The next one is the student absences and excuses, and that includes the student absence notification program. Again, a change at the state level to put more emphasis on dropout prevention. And so we included that. That's an update to the policy, our absence policies that were in our handbook. And then at the high school, there are some other pieces of the absence policy that are added because there's a credit recovery and a credit loss piece that goes along with absences and tardiness at the high school, which has been in those handbooks for many years. The student health services isn't policy, but we have a new district nurse leader, and I asked her to look at the information that was in our previous handbooks and to update it for us, and so she did. And she's put information in about the nurses' offices, physicals, required immunizations, and medications and mandatory screenings to be more helpful to parents, to really help them understand, what is required and where you go for support with any of this. And then I think that was the last of the comments section.
Is the communicable diseases portion of that something that's done in practice? So if a student is out sick, I don't know the definition of a communicable disease, and maybe that's...
So it would be like measles,
Okay.
or
Right.
chicken pox, that kind of.
So anything that they're required to take an immunization for,
Mm-hmm.
if they have that before they can return to school, they have to go through the school nurse's office.
Right.
Okay, but that's not in the case of someone who just has a cold that might still be catching. I'm just wondering about in the times of the year when lots of kids are battling various bugs, that would be overwhelming to imagine the nurse's office trying to pre-clear all of those students.
Yeah, no, it's for any kind of communicable disease that could be easily beyond the common cold, communicated to other schools or other students in the schools. Any other questions on that section? And so then, our first handbook is the high school handbook. And are there any questions on any of the changes in the high school handbook?
One of the things I just wanted to share with the rest of the committee is, I shared this with Nancy on the phone earlier, that I noticed that the information about the school committee, the messages from the school committee are old. They were from years past and not the current message that we had worked on last year to put into the handbooks. So I just wanted to mention that she's going to make those changes to put the message we approved last August for the handbook. It was actually in our handbooks this past year, will be the message that we go forward with, and not what's currently here. And also on the listing of school committee members, it lists all of us as our terms expiring in December of 2016, and it should be obviously 2017. So I just wanted to let you know I'd already requested that those changes be made on behalf of the school committee.
I would also, if you don't mind, I would also suggest they get this Ms. off in front of everybody's name, Ms. or Mr. Just put your name and your title.
Makes a lot of
If
sense.
we're
Right.
making changes anyway.
Right.
Update that a little bit.
Yeah, I didn't check the details of addresses or phone numbers. I didn't check that.
And we'll also add the student representative, because we do have that name now, but it
Right.
escapes me at the moment. And I will let Sue Colby know to make those changes.
Right.
Nancy,
So that'll be replaced.
I had a question somewhere, but I have to find it. You can go, Peter.
So my question's more general, because I didn't receive the handbooks until Monday and have not had time to read through them. I'm just wondering if you can highlight any of the other significant changes. I can scroll through and see some of the items that are highlighted that look like simply cleaning up verbiage. Are there any substantive changes in the high school book other than
The only one I think that I would point out to you is the requirements for graduation, the 12 credits of social studies.
which page is that on?
They aren't paged, the numbers
Yeah.
aren't paged. After student life, it's a few pages past the faculty. It's in the first part. Underneath the chart, Golden, Soaring, Improving Eagle. You can find that chart.
The Renaissance program.
I'm looking.
But at any rate, that was approved by the school committee during, when you approved the program of studies.
Right.
So I just wanted to point that one out. And other than that, I think that was the only other, oh, there was one about
Skateboards?
skateboards, yes. There's one also about receiving a brown bag lunch.
That's what I was
Right.
going to ask about.
Right,
Office
they no
lunch
longer receive a brown-
detention.
Did they?
So this became an issue at the high school because students who were given detention, rather than being able to get the regular lunch, were given a brown bag lunch. And actually, the practice was stopped a few years ago, but the handbook wasn't changed.
Okay.
So what students do now, if they have to have a lunch detention, they get their lunch, and then they bring it to the detention area. So they have the same lunch that they would get otherwise. But it has been going on for a number of years, just wasn't changed in the handbook. And then the skateboard, that was added at the bottoms because it is something that happens. The skateboards, longboards, and scooters are confiscated for a second offense or a third offense. So they took it out of second offense and put it at the bottom there.
So they're being a little bit more lenient, and it's after the third offense that it's confiscated.
No, actually, they,
Doesn't it, I read it as
after
they can
second
take it.
offense. Go ahead.
I just thought, and again, having just now read it, I read it as that if the student says no, it doesn't matter which offense,
Right.
right?
That's right,
If-
that's
if
correct.
they ask
That's
for
correct.
the, right.
Sorry, that's correct. I was just talking with Principal Burke today about this, so I had it clear. And then there's disciplinary action. The last part is if the student refuses to give over his or her skateboard and so forth, then there's disciplinary action. Does that make sense now? right, that would be the high school. Whitebrook, I think, was primarily, well, but we should look about dress code, because I don't.
Dress code reflects exactly what
Yeah.
Alice proposed, but it's not highlighted.
It's not highlighted, but it is exactly the same thing.
Okay.
So I don't think any of us thought any changes were occurring.
The only
Yeah.
thing that's different than what I saw up there was that it says that it will be reviewed on a yearly basis. The one in the handbook says it will be reviewed on a yearly basis. And what I got out of the PowerPoint was that it would be reviewed on a yearly basis by a committee of like students and teachers, I think is what it said.
Where is it in the handbook?
It's like page 38-ish,
Gotcha.
but
Thank
it's
you.
none of the pages are numbered, so you're gonna have to count.
Well, my PDF, which is how I've got it, has pages, so I'll try
Yeah.
that ballpark. Thank you.
The pages are also slightly in the wrong order in that section, but I figured it out. They're all in there, they're just
Yes.
not quite sequential.
And this is obviously the draft, and it will all be put together
Yeah.
in the right order, and once everything has been changed, and there'll also be a table of contents. That will be done tomorrow, so that they're ready. Yeah. And Jill, I don't know if there's any, were you involved with the, with?
The only changes that have been made to the middle school handbook this year are the dress code.
And somehow that didn't get highlighted, because I didn't realize that either. Any other questions about that?
Well, I guess I'd like some time to sort of organize my thoughts about this. And again, I know that Alice Wanamaker is still here, and I want her to understand that I am inclined to be supportive. I spend a lot of time dealing with dress code at my own school, and not having had time to look at this, I'm reluctant to endorse it tonight. But I mean, this document was, I don't know when this change was implemented or when the changes that we've seen so far in the handbooks were added in, but I know that I did not get mine until Monday evening, and have not had time to read it through or think about this thoroughly enough to make a decision this evening.
Well, and I think also that it was unfortunate. I didn't actually understand that it had been changed either, because it wasn't highlighted. You know, when I asked the administrators to highlight any changes before they sent it to me, and I looked all those changes over, but I didn't see this as a change because it wasn't highlighted, so I wasn't ready to be able to answer questions on it.
But I think as far as the dress code portion of the changes to the handbooks go, that's the one that we've actually had the most information on, because we just saw this PowerPoint, and we also knew it was something that was coming, and we also said that we were in support of Alice going ahead and meeting with the principal about it. So I feel like out of all the changes, like regardless of when we received the handbooks or you know, what was highlighted and what wasn't, the dress code's actually the thing that we know the most about at this point. So I'm inclined to support it wholeheartedly.
Really quickly, I worked a lot with Ms. Police over this. We sat down and went through everything that I was proposing to make sure that we both supported it. And I also got the chance to talk to one or two teachers at Whitebrook and like debate about it. So I've spoken to Whitebrook faculty about this.
We assume that it's put forth here that this is Meredith's or Ms. Police's blessing, recommendation.
One of the things that was important when Ms. Belize was working with Alice was that the language in the Whitebrook's handbook around dress code was in alignment with the high school's language. So I don't know, I don't have that language in front of me, but you may want to look to see in both if they're similar or the same.
I will check that out. Hold on. Too many open documents. Okay.
I know. Scrolling.
This is where we cut the commercials.
Yeah, don't we wish?
So,
Dress and grooming before honor roll.
dress and grooming. Yeah, this is the language if I remember correctly, there's some overlap with the changes that are now present in the Whitebrook dress code, but there's some legacies of what existed before and has been modified.
Can you, do you have on your PDF what page-ish that is?
Yeah, hang on. I think I'm around 38.
Okay, cool.
It seems like the one omission that might be significant is about clothing with obscenities. I don't know if the Whitebrook dress code as written would prohibit teachers from being able to enforce that.
Right, and this is the first item in the dress for the high school, addresses some of what you said.
Right.
And again, I'm sorry, I would have compared it with their previous dress code had I known that this was, the change was already in here. And I don't know whether the previous dress code addressed that or not. I can't tell you that tonight. So.
I think it did, as I recall, but I could be wrong, but I think it did.
So then with the changes on it, I believe that there was no
didn't?
rule about that. If there had been, I would because I don't see a reason to remove that rule. And if you would like to add that rule back in, I personally would be in full support of that.
I mean, I think what we're being asked to do is to look at what has been proposed so far, which what we have for the Whitebrook dress code is pretty comprehensive. It absolutely covers covers everything that was addressed before. I don't remember what the policy said before either, but I do know Alice has shown us that she's incredibly diligent about the work that she's doing, and I feel like if there had been something about obscenities in there, it would have been covered. I'm also in support of adding something in like that, if that makes sense, but I would be okay with moving forward with the discrepancies between the high school and the middle school dress code, knowing that they're both different schools, and also maybe with the idea that we relook at the high school dress code in the next year or two.
And I would like to let you know that I was focusing on the Whitebrook dress code this year because it was the one that affected me, and it was also the one that seemed the most problematic. But with the knowledge I've gained with this specific presentation, I am planning on reviewing that dress code in this coming year.
Absolutely, that's great. That's awesome.
So, it's always fun to talk about live and on TV, but the second bullet on the high school dress code is different, though I think it attempts to accomplish the same mission as the revised middle school one. Pants must be high enough on the hips so as not to expose underwear or skin, right? There's nothing about, am I missing something in the high school about bare midriffs?
Yes, attire covering the top of the body must be long enough to cover the navel and or the torso.
Okay, so, I mean, I think it is wise to have the language be consistent between the two. And again, I'm just speaking from practical experience about I can quite imagine a student meeting the middle school dress code and yet a teacher, as drafted and presented here, and wondering if it's appropriate for class, just as it's written. And I think that you know.
But I think there's a difference between like appropriate for class and like against the dress code. You know, I mean, like at my job, there's an understanding of like what's appropriate to wear to work, and then there's also a formal dress code. You know,
You do have a dress code?
yeah, we do have like a formal dress code, but it's all safety related. You know, so. But there is kind of an understanding about like what's appropriate versus like what's written down as part of the formal dress code. You know, I feel like that's a common thing. I think one of the things that I really like about the new middle school policy is that it removes a lot of the subjective kind of value judgments that could be seen as racist or classist or sexist and have been used in those ways in other places, and I'm sure in East Hampton as well. So I think that's a real strength of the new policy or the proposed policy.
Can I say something? Peter, to your Wait, I think the presupposition that someone's going to try and beat the dress code is not fair.
I disagree, respectfully.
I just have to interrupt, just to Robert's Rules of Order, we're not really supposed to be engaging
sorry.
with the audience during the meeting. It's supposed to be for public speak time or a special presentation, so I just had to interrupt and say that
It's
we
fine,
really,
sorry.
we can't
I
carry
wasn't
on a
sure.
dialogue really or discussion
Okay.
with the rest of you present, unfortunately. Okay, so, well, in terms of this topic on the dress code, what I'm hearing everyone say is that the one thing we might like to see added to the Whitebrook dress code would be the statement about clothing and accessories with promiscuous language printed or written on it, as well as material that advertises substance that is illegal for use by students of the high school or middle school age or contains obscenities are not allowed. That we would like to see that added to the middle school dress code. This isn't a vote or anything, I'm just looking for general understanding.
Yeah, generally, I think that would be,
General agreement.
I would be in agreement with that.
Okay. And then generally, do we feel comfortable with the rest of the dress code as it is? I'm just trying to get a sense of where we're at here.
Yeah.
To move the conversation forward.
Yep.
That we're generally in agreement that the rest of it seems acceptable for a new direction for Whitebrook Middle School. Just checking in a general.
I have one reservation, but other than that, I think it's great.
Okay, so what is your reservation, Peter?
I think that the first bullet, clothes that reveal underwear being banned, is, and this, you know, I'll respond in the abstract, is not to a student who is deliberately trying, but who may genuinely be confused about the intent behind that. I think the intent behind clothes that reveal underwear is designed to prevent distraction at some level in the classroom, right? And that's a legitimate basis for excluding dress, right? If someone is dressed in a way that is distracting to other students, that I think is a legitimate basis, and I think that that's part of what underlies this. I'm forgetting now, and I apologize, but that's why I asked to see the PowerPoint again. I'd love to give more thought to what we heard tonight by way of presentation.
So
that, you know, it's just a matter of
Yeah.
time to figure out. I think that this is well intended, and I think that the information that Alice presented about the difficulty, particularly for students who choose to wear shorts, boy or girl, if they're wearing shorts that are designed for girls, it's, as the data shows, highly problematic to meet the current dress code, right? And I think that I would love to have heard a little bit more about the rationale behind that. So rather than speculating about why that was put in the way it was before, so I just come back to time, right? I mean, I knew that this conversation was coming. I did not know that it would be a presentation for us to vote on tonight less than 48 hours ago. And so with all due respect to my colleagues and to the folks here, I feel like I'm, you know, sure, it's fine. I have a hesitation. I'll abstain rather than endorse something that I don't think I've had time to thoroughly understand the rationale behind, because it's a policy change, and I think that's okay. So, you know, I don't want to use up everyone else's time debating to say to reject this, but
Well, if Principal Belize has looked at this carefully and approved of it, in the hypothetical situation where 3 months into the school year she discovers that this dress code does produce some problems,
Dress
for
code
discipline,
anarchy.
is there any procedure for changing mid-year?
Certainly.
Yeah, then in that case, I would feel very comfortable moving forward with these changes.
Yeah, I would too.
The
I think
only
there's
other-
been a lot of thought put into it.
Absolutely.
The only other significant difference I see between the two, just to throw out for discussion purposes, is the strapless tops are prohibited at the high school, and we're not specifically prohibiting that in the middle school. It's kind of significant for females and clothing options.
Well, I think again, this is one of the strengths of the new policy too, is that it has built into it this yearly review. So if it turns out people are showing up and tube tops are back in fashion again and everybody's wearing them to school and it's causing problems, then there is a built-in opportunity to
Make some
review that.
changes.
Yeah. But I don't want to make problems where there aren't any problems currently. And like Marissa said, you know, Sid's principal Elise has gone over it and was involved in writing it. I trust her input on that.
Can I ask one other clarifying question when it says that, so if a student is in violation of the dress code by these objective standards, the procedure would be to have the student not, okay, so first, right, so as I understand the process, a teacher would be obligated under this, right? Because this is saying that the teacher doesn't have the discretion to ignore any time that they see this, right? I'm putting myself in the shoes of a middle school teacher. I have no option, but when I see a student who I believe is out of dress code, to inform those such, and if they reappear in my class, then I refer the student to the office. And then the principal makes a decision about whether or not the student's in or out of dress, correct? Did you read this? Right?
Right, but they're not removed from the classroom.
Right, so a student could be objectively out. They could be showing up in flip-flops with a ball cap on and sunglasses, which is patently out of dress code. And the teacher cannot ask that student to leave the room and return in dress code?
Correct.
Correct.
It's really sort of unclear what happens when once referred to the office. What happens there? They're not missing class. It's a little
Right.
unclear what happens.
Right. And again, I'm doing all this thinking out loud because of the circumstances. I can see the academic sense in that. I can also see the difficulty around that because you have some period of time, I guess conceivably, as long as the student is continuing to go to classes, where the student could be out of dress code all day under this dress code.
Correct.
Well, and I hesitate to speak again because I don't feel like I'm prepared to speak about that this evening, but I do know that a common policy in our schools is when students are referred to the office, then a parent is called to bring appropriate clothing. But it doesn't say that here.
It doesn't say, and I think that would be reasonable. You would let the student perhaps complete the class that they're in, but then at the next logical break, get some judgment from the principal. Hey, maybe I mean, in some cases it's easy, right? Take the sunglasses off, take the hat off, but that those things would not be complicated if there was some debate over whether the top was appropriate or whether or not, am I in the wrong one now? Sorry. No, I'm in the right one. Right? Whether or not that is pajamas or isn't pajamas, right?
And if you do look at the dress and grooming in the high school, and as I say, I know this was pretty much the accepted practice, the last line said, students not adhering to these guidelines will be asked to change into other clothes or have a change of clothes brought in for them. The student refuses to comply, disciplinary action may be taken.
Right.
That makes sense.
Right, but
That makes
but
sense.
I think what we're referring to is in the Whitebrook one, it says teachers will give a verbal reminder when they observe a student wearing one of the above items that are not allowed. So a verbal warning, and subsequent violations will result in a referral to the office.
So instead of asking them to go change or to
Right, it's
have clothing
just
brought to them,
reminding
it's the
them-
next time they're asked to go to the office, and
So
it kinda
back-
escalates.
So back to what Peter was saying, the hat and the ball cap and the sunglasses, you remind them that that's not acceptable, but technically what this says under the Whitebrook one is subsequent violations will result in a referral to the office. So it sounds like that day there's no referral to the office.
Right, and I think one of the great things about the proposal as it's been written is its clarity, and I think that would be easy to clarify.
Yeah.
Subsequent is is a term. Does subsequent mean it's still wearing the glasses and the hat in the next class? That's subsequent, so now you have to go to the office.
Because the way this reads, it sounds like that day you get a reminder.
Right.
The way this reads, to me.
Right.
And I guess, my question would be if someone, one of our students was wearing an inappropriate T-shirt with something that had an obscenity on it, would we want them wearing that all day?
So maybe the language from the high school that you were just reading, Nancy, would be helpful in this. The students not adhering to these guidelines will be asked to change into other clothes or have a change of clothes brought to them.
I think that would make good sense.
Right.
I do too.
Just it first of all, they end up being the same. You have the continuity, but it also clears up whether the first day you just get to do, just a reminder.
I would think that would be problematic going forward if you
I
continually
think that
have
would
people.
be, how would you know who reminded who and what day
Right,
that
would-
was? And
right.
So I think this would just clear it up a little bit.
I do think we should leave in there that students aren't to be removed from their classroom, though. Because, I think that's an important.
Well, what if a student says, no, I won't
Take off my
abide by the dress
sunglasses
code?
and my cap.
I think that's a different issue than the dress code. That's a different, then you're dealing with insubordination, I guess is what it's called in here. But that's a different issue than somebody wearing a shirt that might be too short,
I know, but we have in the passage that was highlighted in the high school text related to the skateboards, there was clearly the addition involves there's an infraction for running your skateboard down the hallway of the high school. There's another level if you say no, I won't turn it over. No, I won't take, and again, I suspect that 99% of students are going to say, oh, right, I forgot, and take the hat off or take their sunglasses off. But occasionally, you will run into a student who is reluctant to do that.
Right.
And could be empowered by the vagueness of this to say, and you can't make me leave class.
But I don't think that I don't, when it gets to that point, I don't think that's about dress code anymore. That's another.
But it needs
rule
to be
that's
clear.
being
I think it
that's
could be
being
clarified in the same way it was about the skateboards.
Right. It just needs to be clearer.
Yeah.
That's one of the great
You know what
parts of
the
this,
intent is.
It's clear.
Right. We know what the intent is, but the intent, you just want to make it clear. You want to have it clearly state what the intent is.
And I wonder if the high school statement helps to make it clear, because it does say if the student refuses to
Yeah.
comply,
Right. I think it does.
Yeah.
disciplinary action may
I
be
like-
taken, which could be removing the student from the classroom.
Right.
Which I think, Sarah, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
That removing from a classroom is not about the dress code, but refusing to obey.
Because to put it in context, what's happened kind of on a more national level, the stories that I've heard, not from East Hampton but from other places, are generally young women and girls who are in class who are wearing shorts that are considered to be too short and then are asked to go and change, and they miss that class while they're going and changing. That I see as a problem. But if somebody's sitting there with a ball cap on and they're asked to take it off, and they say, no, I'm not taking it off, I don't see it as a problem that they're then removed from the class. It just seems to me like what was happening, and the problem that this is addressing is that there was a problem where girls were being asked to leave class to go deal with, and are being asked to leave class to go deal with clothing issues. And and they're missing class disproportionately because of that. That's what it's addressing. So I just want to make sure that we have kind of the spirit of that, and also we make sure that people aren't being kicked out of class for.
So in other words, if they have something that doesn't adhere to the policy, they're able to remain through that class.
And then go change.
And
they have a
then
break.
get their
Yeah.
clothing, but how much time do you have between classes that you might not?
You're gonna miss something.
Well, this is something that I
I
think.
don't see how you're going to get
But this
the-
is something that I think could be referred to somebody who's actually at the school during the day, to the principal who's actually at the school during the day, seeing this happen, knowing what the issues are, and kind of understanding the logistics of it.
I think if you're changing your clothes, you're going to miss some part of a class somewhere along the line.
Right, but I'm saying I just want to make sure that part stays in there to some extent. That's very important to me, and I think it's also important to anybody who's involved in education. That's a problem at any school, so I'd like for that to stay there. But I'm totally fine with referring that back to Principal Belize and taking another look at it and kind of seeing how we can clean it up and make it a little bit more straightforward and easier to interpret.
I guess I'm part of the group that's problematic for you then, Sarah, because I do not see the problem in saying to a student, you're not in dress code, come back when you are.
Well, we can disagree on some things then.
Right, but I guess I would say that I still do care about education, because that was the piece. I understand that there are objections that you have. I wouldn't describe people who share the viewpoint that I just expressed as.
I don't think I was describing you that way, Peter. I would advise you to not take that too personally.
Okay.
Okay, well, we brought out some of the issues or concerns we have about that particular dress code. So, do we want to continue on with the rest of the handbook?
Sure.
And then,
I think we do need a decision, though, about whether we're going to approve the handbook as it is tonight, or we're going to send it back to Principal Belize to make that, to clarify that piece of the dress code.
okay, so do you want to?
Because we need to get these handbooks out to our students.
Okay, so I
and their
think we're all in
families.
agreement we want some modifications, clarity,
Yeah.
correct?
Right, I think just like we were saying, adding that extra, what's in the high school, that really adds some clarity to it.
In a few places.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
Well, specifically the piece about the obscenities and the direction regarding what happens when someone doesn't adhere to the guidelines.
Right.
Correct.
all right, so here, I'd like your guidance on this then as well. If we are asking Principal Belize to go back and revise the handbook, then it would have to come back to you for approval, which means that it would be that much more delayed going out to families and students, because our next school committee meeting is September 13th. And I'm just bringing that up as a possible issue. Or what we could do is put the old policy in and then revise it after the,
Or could we just make a suggestion, or part of our motion, part of our acceptance, that we accept it with
those
these-
changes?
Yeah, by adding, and really all you're doing is you're adding the things that are already in the high school one for clarity. Again, the one about the promiscuous language, and also the one about not adhering to the guidelines. So almost like the first one,
adding
and then
those two that you,
right, and would that be doable? We could approve it with the understanding that these
two pieces would be changed.
these will be added to, also the Whitebrook for clarity purposes.
Then the only other piece is the enforcement of regulations. It seems like we need more clarity on
I would
that.
like to, instead of just copying what it says in the high school handbook and putting that in there, I think I'd like to get the principal's feedback on what would work best for that particular school and with those particular issues.
So, what we could do is just let parents know that the former handbook is still in effect until the new handbook is approved, which would be at your next school committee meeting.
Okay.
Would that work?
That's fine with me.
Yep.
So just the enforcement of regulations, if you could share with Principal Belize, I guess, I know, I understand what you're saying, Sarah, and I appreciate that point. My only concern is, as Mayor Cadger pointed out, that for teachers to just verbally remind someone and then have the kids violating the dress code the whole rest of the day, I think it might create an environment that becomes incredibly difficult to manage, because you never know who's been reminded and who hasn't, and you've got potential violations walking around all over the place. And it doesn't seem to be a real clear approach in terms of enforcement. And then you're saying not going to be removed from the classroom, but they'll be referred to the office. It just seems like all very vague in how that's being handled. So it just seems to me like we need a little bit more clear direction,
Clarity in
clarity
that.
in the enforcement of the regulations.
So I could ask Principal Belize to look at the clarity of that piece, and then those other two suggestions from the high school
Right, and this
handbook.
piece of it does seem to make sense to include, but there might also need to be some further clarity, because otherwise it seems to me like you really aren't really enforcing anything for quite a period of time. If you're just giving a verbal reminder and things carry on. I mean, that could happen everywhere, every day, all the time.
So I'll bring it back to her and to the assistant principal, have them look at that with your suggestions, and then bring it back to the September school committee meeting for approval.
Sounds good to me.
And then up until that point, the former handbook will be in effect. Is that what the school committee would like? Okay.
So-
All right, very good.
Okay.
So, moving on.
The elementary handbook.
So that was the only change in the middle school book?
Apart from the changes that are in all of them, right?
Right,
like
there's the generic
Right.
across the board, there's no
Yeah.
other, and then, you know, the names of staff, right? Those are the only things, in my quick looking through at what is highlighted, after the opening section, it's only changes in staff, is that correct?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Those were the changes that I saw. So. But I will check with Principal Belize to see if there were any others that didn't get highlighted. So the elementary handbook, and I think that was really just changes in staff members. That was the only thing that they changed in their handbook.
One thing that's a little confusing is, on the Whitebrook one too, on the staff members, that we have a new school nurse, but it's
Right.
the old school nurse's email address.
Oh, yeah.
That needs to be changed. Where is that one?
On the staff page for Whitebrook.
Oh, right there. Okay. Thank you.
So for the elementary school, we don't have any other changes.
Correct.
Okay.
And that was what was communicated to me by the elementary principals.
Okay. So, at this point in time, we should take a vote on the remainder of the student handbook. If there are unless there are any other questions or comments or things we want to discuss about it. Any other questions, comments,
No, I think
concerns?
it's pretty straightforward.
Okay, are we ready to vote? Do we have a motion?
What?
Do we have a
Oh, I
motion?
thought you were starting a sentence.
So do we have a motion?
Sure, would that be the motion to approve the handbook revisions? Or do we do each handbook one at a time? I need some,
We probably should do
we
each one
probably
separately.
have to do each one
Yes.
separately, yeah.
Okay,
So a motion to approve the handbook for the high school, East Hampton High School for 2016 to 2017.
Second.
as presented.
Yeah, as presented.
Okay, we have a motion to approve East Hampton High School 2016-2017 student handbook as presented to us, and it's been seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstain? You're abstaining, Peter?
No, I'm abstaining on the Whitebrook.
Oh, did you vote in favor of the high
I
school?
voted in favor.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I
Okay,
haven't had time to look at those changes.
okay, thank you. Okay, motion for the middle school handbook?
Motion for the middle school handbook.
I'm sorry, I thought we were.
I thought we were going to ask Principal Belize for,
Okay, I thought we were going to
Or-
approve it with
bring
the
that- come
exception
back
of
to us.
that
Oh, yeah.
policy.
Oh,
like approve the rest of it.
Approve the rest of
Have
it?
the changes be made to the policy, and then approve the policy,
Yeah.
and then send out the handbook.
Yeah, that's what I assumed, but we can do it, we don't have to do that, we don't have to do it that way if you prefer not.
No, that makes the most sense, because then we don't have to look at the whole handbook again.
Or are there other things that we wanted to address?
I thought we had I'm sorry, but I thought we had agreed to, give the suggestions to Ms. Belize and then have her, approve them, make recommendations, and then we would vote on that
The whole
one.
handbook.
That's what I
On the
thought,
whole
for
handbook.
White Brook.
Okay,
And until that time, we're going to use the current handbook.
Oh, okay,
Okay.
I see, that makes more sense.
Bring it,
All right.
hopefully for our next meeting, we would have that.
and we'll just confirm too that there weren't any other changes, that were
That seems
changes
to
that
be
weren't
the only
highlighted.
change, yeah.
Correct.
Okay, all right, we'll move on then to the elementary school handbook. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve the elementary school handbook.
For 2016, 2017 as presented? Yes. Okay. We have a motion on the floor to approve the elementary school handbook for 2016, 2017 as presented. It's been seconded. All those in favor? Motion passes. Thank you very much. Okay. Moving on.
Superintendent goals. I did meet with you and we discussed my goals at a work session. You gave me some suggestions and I incorporated those into my goals. So these are the goals that I am putting forward for you tonight for your acceptance. I'm hoping that you all had a chance to look at them. If there are any other suggestions or changes, we can certainly make those tonight. And then I would look for your approval.
We had a work session on these goals where we reviewed everything with the superintendent, had a lot of discussion, and she had the draft for us at that time. So does anybody have any comments, questions, suggestions?
I'm just looking over it one more time. I think it's pretty much what I remember talking about, so if anybody else has anything.
Okay, are we ready for a vote?
I'll make a motion to approve the professional practice goals as submitted.
A second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve Superintendent Follansbee's goals for 2016, 2017. It's been seconded. Any last minute discussion? All those in favor? Motion passes. Thank you very much. Okay, we have warrants and payroll.
Quite a few. So for payroll, I move to approve the school payroll dated July 21st, 2016 in the amount of $475,120.12.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's been a motion to approve the school payroll dated July 21st, 2016 in the amount of $475,120.12. It's been seconded. All those in favor? Motion passes.
I move to approve the accounts payable authorization for payment dated September 1st, 2016 in the amount of $181,759.44.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion, it's been seconded to approve the accounts payable authorization for payment dated September 1st, 2016 in the amount of $181,759.44. All those in favor? Motion passes.
I move to approve the school payroll dated August 4th, 2016 in the amount of $307,770.34.
Is there a second? There's been a motion and it's been seconded to approve the school payroll dated August 4th, 2016 in the amount of $307,770.34. All those in favor? Motion passes.
I move to approve the accounts payable authorization for payment dated August 4th, 2016 in the amount of $52,592.18.
Second?
Second.
There's a motion, and it's been seconded to approve the accounts payable authorization for payment dated August 4th, 2016, in the amount of $52,592.18. All those in favor? Motion passes.
I move to approve the school payroll dated August 18th, 2016 in the amount of $328,973.58.
Second.
There's a motion, it's been seconded to approve the school payroll dated 8/18/2016 in the amount of $328,973.58. All those in favor? Motion passes.
And finally, I move to approve the accounts payable authorization for payment dated 8/18/2016 in the amount of $85,434.40.
Second.
There's a motion, it's been seconded to approve the accounts payable authorization for payment dated 8/18/2016 in the amount of $85,434.40. All those in favor? Motion passes.
And I do need signatures from people before we all leave.
Just so you know, we have representatives that come in and review all the accounts payable information weekly, line item by line item, before we vote on that tonight. So that sort of research and detail, attention to detail happens. Okay.
And we have honored the payrolls from August 4th.
Yes, people are still
And
getting
August
paid.
18th, yes.
They have been paid.
A motion that we open one school choice slot for grade 6 at White Brook Middle School.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion passes to open the school choice slot for grade 6 at White Brook Middle School.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Plenty for that one.
All those in favor? Motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Alice?